Take a moment right now and think of a time in your life when an interaction or meeting someone changed the course of your life. First, think of a positive experience and how that felt inside and how it resonated with you. And now think of a negative experience and the impact that had on your life. When I was a child, I was bullied a lot and was lonely a lot of the time. The one thing I had in my life that I could count on were animals, especially my dog. I had a dream when I was a child, and that was to be a veterinarian when I grew up. If anyone asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I knew the answer. It gave my life meaning. Well, when I was 17 years old, two things happened on the same day and in the same building that changed the course of my life. I was registering for college and I had to meet with my advisor. I went into a building, down into the basement, into a dark office. A man sat across from me. He had papers on his desk, and he asked me, "What's your major?" Well, I knew immediately the response, pre-vet. He looked down at the papers on his desk, he looked up at me, and he said, "Patricia, you're not smart enough for that. Look at your grades. You'll never make it." Well, I left that room completely shattered. My dreams were thrown away. I look back on that now and I also feel sad for the 17-year-old who didn't have people in her life that believed in her and her ability to follow her dreams. Well, that same day, one floor up in the same building, I walked into a room where there were a lot of different students, looked across the room, saw someone that I immediately connected with. His name was Mark. And he was the exact opposite of the man in the basement. He is kind, compassionate, provides unconditional love, and he believes in my ability to accomplish anything in my life. Well, in 1986, Mark shared with me that he was HIV positive. And back then, we didn't know a lot about the virus and the disease. So I became involved as a volunteer with the Red Cross, and then as a volunteer therapist for 7 years with adults living with HIV and AIDS. Around the same time, I was involved with the Pennsylvania Gestalt Center and became a therapist. And in 1995, I was watching a 60-minute segment about a camp in New York for kids impacted by HIV and AIDS. Something about seeing the faces of the kids and hearing their stories really touched my heart. I had that spark that I believe we all have when we are inspired and we feel like we need to do something. Well, my best friend Charlotte called me after the program. She had watched it, and she said, "You need to do something." Well, I had no idea how to start a camp, and so I shrugged it off. A couple days later, some other people in the Gestalt community heard about it, and they said the same thing. They believed in my ability to accomplish this, and not only that, they rolled up, they got involved. We became the small group of committed citizens to change the world for kids impacted by HIV and AIDS. That summer of 1996, we had our first camp session for 53 children, 9 of which were HIV infected. And now, 25 years later, we have programs throughout the year for 130 kids. We offer the only therapeutic camp program on the East Coast, and all of our programs are free. So kids coming to our programs are HIV infected themselves, have an HIV infected family member, or someone in their family has died of an AIDS-related complication. Now I want to share with you our values. We hold these dear and in our heart. And I want you to think about the values that you have in your own life and maybe how you can put those into action in your life. The first is safety. Camp is a safe place for kids. We provide a variety of therapeutic programs that help them identify ways to express their feelings. Things like art therapy, music therapy, yoga, massage. We have equine mindfulness-based programs and even a therapeutic wilderness program. The kids feel comfortable expressing their feelings at camp. We also provide educational programs. And you know what? Kids tell me that camp is the only place they feel comfortable sharing their feelings about HIV and AIDS. And the counselors are there for the kids. They provide hope and love, unconditional love. Respect is really important to us. At camp, we celebrate differences and we encourage kids to feel welcomed. No one is bullied at camp, and we help children identify who they are and support. Acceptance is the next value. There's still a stigma associated with HIV and AIDS. Kids are still bullied because of HIV. And you know, there are still schools that we can't get into to provide HIV education because of the stereotypes that people still have and the myths associated with the disease. Feeling like you're perfect just the way you are. That's something the kids learn at camp. We provide an atmosphere of tolerance and acceptance. I love camp because I'm able to cry. This slide really resonates with me. This is our wish log ceremony, which is on Wednesday night at camp. Imagine being next to a lake, 200 people in a circle in silence, and the children come up one by one or with their friends, and they put their wish logs on the fire. This could be 1-inch long stick or a 9-foot log. They can put it in silence or they can use their words. And often, there's expressions of grief and loss. I wish my mom was here. I wish I didn't have HIV. I wish I could have said goodbye to my dad. And it's always the teenage boys that cry the most, because this is the one time they can let down their wall and be vulnerable and receive support. Inclusivity is our next value. All of our programs are intentionally created to meet the needs of the different age groups. We serve kids 5 through 17 at camp, and there's 7 different programs. And they pick up the broken pieces of me. This was, one boy said this about his counselors at camp. The reality is that beyond HIV and AIDS, 70% of the children have experienced some form of abuse. 50% have lost one or both parent, and 25% have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. What makes us unique is we have therapists that facilitate our therapeutic programs. And we also have trauma-informed programming at camp. And friendship. That feeling that everybody has your back. If you've ever been to camp, you know what that's like, especially a returning camper. Having fun with your friends, learning new skills, succeeding with skills. The kids participate in basketball and arts and crafts and fishing and go-kart racing, adventure challenge course, all of those activities that bond people. And love. Providing unconditional love in so many ways, whether it's massage or yoga or that one-on-one interaction that you can have with your counselor at camp. Well, diversity is a fact at camp because 96% of the children are children of color, and we increase our diversity every year with our volunteers. Equity is a choice. All of our programs are free. We provide supplies for the programs and transportation to camp. And last summer, a wonderful foundation gave us money so we could purchase devices, laptop computers, for the kids that didn't have it for our 2 weeks of virtual camp. And belonging is the outcome. So our programs include a 1-week camp session, teen leadership retreats, mentoring programs, a college scholarship program. We now have a new emerging leader program. We have a holiday adopt a family program. And we started an emergency fund for families this year with COVID. We also have HIV/AIDS education and outreach. Over the past 25 years, we've served 5,700 children, and our wonderful volunteers, who really are my heroes, have provided over 240,000 hours of service. For most of the volunteers, this is their week of vacation, and they come back every year to provide an unforgettable experience. And by volunteering, they receive something. The stigma associated with HIV and AIDS is shattered when you meet someone impacted. And, you know, at camp, resiliency is something that happens with the kids. And the biggest factor in building resiliency in children is for them to have a safe and supportive adult, a consistent adult in their life. And 70% of our counselors and campers have been coming to our programs for over 10 years. Now I want to tell you the story of one of our campers. She grew up in Chester County. Her name is Lakeisha, and at the age of 9, she was in the parenting role in her family because her mom had AIDS. During that time, she and her mom lived in their car on and off for 2 years. She didn't receive any support from her community or her school. In fact, she received the opposite. She was bullied and teased. She felt isolated, and she felt the stigma associated with HIV and AIDS. She started attending our programs in 1996, and she told me recently that camp gave her back her childhood. 2 things impacted her. The first was the loving embrace of the volunteers, and the second was meeting other children who were like her. She didn't know anyone before she started coming to camp who was impacted by HIV. So she moved through our program. She became a counselor in training and was our first junior counselor. When she was 15, her mom died. And at that point, she made the decision to step out of secrecy. And she has said that saying the word AIDS set her free. She went to her principal and she said, "I want to tell my story." And he said, "No." She wanted to share it with the students, and he kept saying no. She persisted, and 2 years after she graduated, she came back and shared her story. She went on from there to go to college, and then to South Africa to volunteer, starting HIV/AIDS awareness and education programs at both places. Last year, she came back to camp. She told her story with our virtual programs to the kids. And hers really is a story of the shift from isolation and stigma to resiliency and hope. She was the 2019 District of Columbia Teacher of the Year, and she is currently Miss DC for America. And her platform is the AIDS awareness. For me, the magic of camp, the essence of camp, is captured the African philosophy, Ubuntu. It's defined as, I am because you are, that we are all connected. As human beings, we cannot live in isolation. We need to be connected with each other. And when we come together for a common good, that's when change really happens. To be human is to belong. And belonging is an outcome at camp. This is what a lot of kids say, and volunteers, that camp is where my family is. For most of the children, it's their second home. So we end where we started with the dream. You know, the question of, how do you make your dream a reality? It's really by surrounding yourself with people who believe in your ability to accomplish your dream. And I have a challenge for all of you, and that challenge is to become dream catchers in your own life, to embody Ubuntu. If someone whispers a dream, listen, fuel the flame of a dream. Become a dream catcher for a child, a friend, a colleague, and in your community. Volunteer, roll up your sleeves, get involved, and in doing so, you'll change the world. Thank you.